I ain't no cop. I ain't no lawyer. I watch Law and Order. You know what I'm saying? And the way this is going, it looks like certain type of thing is going chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what, but it's becoming clearer. It's becoming clearer and clearer. But
I ain't no cop. I ain't no lawyer. I watch Law and Order. You know what I'm saying? And the way this is going, it looks like a certain type of thing is going down. Chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what. But it's becoming clearer. It's coming clearer and clearer. But, 4 years, we thought we had the Vegas tragedy mapped out in our minds. The flashing lights of the Strip, the roaring BMW, the sudden gunfire that ended an era. But tonight, everything we thought we knew gets blown to pieces. Mopim Shakur, Shakur's own brother, has come forward with a revelation that changes the entire game. He says the story we were told was a cover, a carefully arranged narrative designed to bury the real truth. According to him, Shakur may not just be a victim of that September night. He may still be alive, forced into hiding, and his enemy isn't some faceless rival. It's one of the most powerful men in hip-hop history. The name at the center of it all, Diddy. The boy Puffy called me, though. Puffy called me back in the day. Back in the day, he called me. He was like, I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brothers. We can feel the ground shifting because this isn't a random vlogger recycling old theories. This is blood. This is family. Mop went on Piers Morgan's show and stared straight into the camera with the same calm intensity his brother once had. When pressed about Diddy's long-standing denials, Mop didn't mince words. He said he had his doubts, serious doubts, and reminded us of something chilling he told Diddy nearly 2 decades ago. The truth is still yet to come out, so we going to see. Well, the years have passed and now it feels like we are finally starting to see if Shakur's own brother refuses to buy Diddy's innocence, then how much of what we were sold about that night holds up. We know Diddy called Mopim back in 2008. That's not speculation. It happened. He reached out through radio host Big Boy asking for a meeting. Imagine it. Diddy, the king of bad boy, rattled enough by whispers that he phoned the Shakur family himself. Surrounded by his crew, Mop listened as Diddy swore up and down that he had nothing to do with the shooting. But Mop didn't let him off the hook. He told them straight, the truth always comes out. Now, here we are 27 years later, and Mop admits it looks more and more like that statement from Diddy was not entirely honest. If the denials were airtight, why are cracks showing now? Why do we keep hearing the same rumors from insiders who lived in those rooms and walked those streets? I mean, that's Puffy's homie. You know what I mean. They have a relationship. They're friendly. They know each other. And this is where it turns darker. Mop's doubts are not floating alone. They're tethered to a history of whisper campaigns that stretch all the way back to 1996. Insiders in Los Angeles clubs spoke of Diddy having a cleanup squad, a quiet crew that stepped in after dangerous incidents. Witnesses who might have been able to speak suddenly went silent. Cases stalled. Files disappeared. Could that explain why investigations into Shakur's case seemed cursed for so long? Is this why after nearly 3 decades we only have one man, Keith D., officially charged while dozens of names that floated around the case never saw the inside of a courtroom? We have to ask, was somebody making sure the truth never reached daylight? Even law enforcement circles are whispering about the same thing. Federal documents reveal that in a secretly recorded police interview from years back, Diddy's name came up more than 40 times in connection with Shakur's head. 40 times. Could the South Side, __, now awaiting trial claimed Diddy put a bounty on Shakur and Suge Knight? Millions of dollars for their heads. Millions. He described a moment where Diddy allegedly told him, "I'll give anything for that dude head." If this was simply idle talk, why was it repeated word for word in so many different retellings? And why decades later do prosecutors still have that tape locked away in their files? And I think that they don't want if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions. They don't want it to get out to the general public to make up. Meanwhile, Diddy's empire is collapsing under the weight of scandal. Arrested for racketeering, facing trial for trafficking and coercion. His name is now tied not just to sordid parties, but to something much darker. And during the raids on his mansions, raids that pulled back the curtain on his private world, agents reportedly found files with the word Cuba stamped on them. That single word reignites the most persistent rumor of all, that Shakur staged his own exit and fled to the island where his aunt Assad Shakur has lived in exile for decades. Fans have long circulated stories of Shakur sightings in Havana side streets, grainy footage of a man with the same gait, the same shaved head, the same intensity. Were those files evidence of Diddy's role in keeping the real story buried? Was he not just a conspirator in the shooting, but also in controlling the myth of Shakur's disappearance? Let's not forget Michael Nice, Shakur's former bodyguard, once swore he helped smuggle him out. He even claimed Castro himself sanctioned the exile. Nice said Shakur switched bodies at the hospital and slipped onto a jet bound for Barbados before reaching Cuba. The story was dismissed at the time as outrageous until Nice suddenly wound up gone just as he promised to release proof. So when federal raids years later dig up Cuban references inside Diddy's files, we can't help but wonder, was Nice telling the truth all along? And if so, why would Diddy have documentation that ties him to this? Always said, Keha, I'm not going to live, past a certain time or, I know I'm going to get shot up. He knew that. That was, the one thing that he did know. The unanswered questions pile higher. Why did no bystander see the shooter on one of the busiest nights in Vegas? Why was Shakur's weight and height listed incorrectly on the coroner's report? Why did the cremator retire immediately after working on his case? Why did Suge Knight later suggest Shakur was still alive? Telling TMZ in 2014, why you think nobody been arrested 'cause Shakur not gone? Each detail alone is an oddity. Together, they form a map pointing toward deception. And now with Mop's words echoing through the headlines, we have to ask, is the story finally ready to break open? Mop himself is careful, cautious, reminding us this is still unfolding. But even his restraint speaks volumes. If he were certain Diddy had no involvement, he'd say so. Instead, he points to the doubts, the lingering suspicions, and says, once more, we going to see. For a man carrying the pain of his brother's loss for nearly 30 years. He doesn't waste words. He's saying what the rest of us are thinking. The time for lies is ending, and truth has claws. And the claws might just be coming for Diddy. If that's part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here. You did it once and you gonna do it again. That ain't going to make it with the government or nobody. Meanwhile, prosecutors in Diddy's ongoing trial are already struggling with missing witnesses. One alleged victim, listed in indictments as Victim 3, has vanished, unreachable even by her lawyer. If this is how witnesses disappear in his current case, what might have happened back in 1996 when the stakes were even higher? Is this the modern echo of that so-called cleanup squad? Could the same tactics that silenced people around the Vegas shooting still be at play today wrapped into the larger machinery of his empire? And that's where the Cuba theory refuses to go quietly. Every time new evidence surfaces, every time another insider speaks, Havana's shadow looms over the story. Was Diddy shielding knowledge that Shakur lived on? Hidden away in a safe corner of the Caribbean? Did he profit in power and influence by ensuring the world believed Shakur was gone while he alone knew the truth? What could be so dangerous in those files that agents were combing through them during the raids? Now, I ain't trying to say that some kind of conspiracy and maybe some other was going on or this that and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slate 2 weeks before he was murdered. Behind the glittering awards, platinum plaques, and celebrations soaked after parties, Bad Boy Records is beginning to look less like a music label and more like a criminal syndicate draped in silk. The stories pouring out now are darker than anything hip-hop's East versus West rivalry ever put on wax. We're talking about accusations of exploitation on a scale that turns the studio lights into interrogation lamps. Those infamous freak-off gatherings described by prosecutors weren't just wild nights. They were staged marathons of control, with Diddy allegedly forcing people into degrading encounters, filming them, and then holding the tapes like weapons. And when we add in the human trafficking charges, the racketeering counts, and the whispers of silence witnesses, the image of Diddy as a charismatic mogul starts to morph into something closer to a kingpin running a secret society. Think about it. Bad Boy wasn't just dropping radio hits. It was a machine, a fortress of loyalty enforced by fear. Former associates have described a world where saying no to Diddy wasn't an option. Where favors turned into debts and debts could get ugly. If this same machinery was in motion back in 1996, then it's not far-fetched to imagine how the aftermath of Shakur's shooting could be controlled, massaged,